Welcome to Crime Curio, the show where we explore the dark and twisted stories of crime and justice. Today, we're going to take you on a shocking journey of how a rising star turned into a ruthless killer. In 2012, Felix Verdejo Sanchez was a young boxer from Puerto Rico who dazzled the world at the Summer Olympics in London. He was hailed as a diamond and a future champion of his country. But behind his talent and ambition, there was a dark side that no one knew. A side that would lead him to commit a brutal and senseless murder. This is the story of Felix Verdejo Sanchez, a young man who had it all and threw it all away. In 2012, during the Summer Olympics in London, Felix Verdejo Sanchez, a young boxer from Puerto Rico, shone brightly. He was called a diamond and was considered one of the most promising and promised athletes of his country. Everyone seemed to believe that this talented and driven young man would achieve amazing heights in sports. In 2021, the boxer's name again made headlines around the globe, but this time it ended up in the Criminal Chronicles section. The story revolves around a teenage attachment that turned into an addiction, ultimately leading to a terrible tragedy. It also tells the story of the author of the 2014 main knockout, Vasily Lomachenko, who was praised and promoted by the two-time Olympic champion who nearly received a death sentence but instead received a life sentence in prison. It is noteworthy that the boxer himself refuses to enter a plea of guilty even in the face of overwhelming evidence and confessions from his accomplice. The future star of world boxing was born on May 19, 1993, in the Puerto Rican city of San Juan. He was raised in a modestly sized family and developed a fondness for Port Truman. When the boy was 9 years old, a family friend visited with his own son. The boys were playing in the yard when they got into a fight, which resulted in the parents separating the kids. The father of the future athlete advised his son to wear boxing gloves if he wanted to fight in the future. This incident ultimately decided the trajectory of his life. After the fight, Felix asked to be taken to a local gym, and the boy, as he later admitted, fell in love with boxing at the first training session. At the age of 16, he won the Pan American Junior Championships, his nation's championship, and the following year, he traveled to the Olympic Games in London, where he made it to the quarterfinals. In all, Verdejo had 29 fights during his illustrious professional career, winning 27 of them with confidence. In 2014, let's get to know KLA Rodriguez. She was born in San Juan in November 1993, and her full name at birth was given to her. She was recognized as the author of the best knockout in the fight against Sergio Villanueva. A year later, Felix won his first championship belt with the WBO Latino title, which he went on to defend 6 more times in 2 years. Everyone who witnessed the fight thought this young man would go down in boxing history. Her parents, Jose and Kayla. Rodriguez also raised Kayla's son, Jonathan, from a previous marriage. They also shared a daughter named Nicole. KLA was an outgoing and child who excelled in school, loved animals, and aspired to become a veterinarian. Her best friend was her sister Bariz, to whom she confided all of her secrets and anxieties. KLA attended the same school as Felix Verdejo, a young man her age, and the two developed a romantic relationship in adolescence. In 2011, Rodriguez's parents got divorced, and Kayla moved in with family in Florida, and her daughters, who had by then grown to adulthood, chose to remain in San Juan. Even though the sisters had all moved on and had their own lives, they remained in close contact and shared information about everything that was going on with each other. At the age of 18, a promising boxer who had already made it to the Olympics had an affair with Eliza Maria Santiago Sierra, a young schoolgirl who wanted to be a model. At the time, Eliza was only 14 years old and still in school. But even then, she had big plans for the future with a promising and well-known athlete. Additionally, Eliza's parents had no objections to this relationship at all. Felix, an attractive and talented boxer who had gained popularity and was surrounded by women, took advantage of the opportunity to spin a story or have a casual affair on the side. Additionally, despite Eliza and Felix's serious relationship, Felix continued to see his school friend KLA, Keisha's sister Berenice, and her mother, Keishla Rodríguez, was aware of the affair and disapproved of. Furthermore, the circumstances were highly unclear. On the one hand, Eliza believed she was the athlete's only woman and his greatest love. Keisha, on the other hand, was making plans for their future together and getting ready for the wedding. She was aware that the lover had a fiancé, but Felix held her back because he was her first true love, and in her heart, the innocent girl still wanted to be the one in 2016. The boxer did marry Eliza, who was then almost 19 years old. At the time, Eliza was a well-known model with tens of thousands of social media followers. Just a few months after the athlete's marriage, he was involved in a serious car accident. While speeding on his motorcycle, he was taken to the hospital in critical condition with head injuries, bruises, and lacerations. Felix's trainer, Ricky Marquez, was extremely concerned that his gifted charge would lose his mind at the peak of his career. But despite the dismal prognosis, Felix recovered quickly and soon went back into the ring. In September 2019, the boxer posted a picture of a woman in a long-term pregnancy on the social network. He commented, "I'm going to meet my dad's princess soon," to the photo. A month later, he announced the birth of a daughter, Miranda Verdejo. In public, Santiago appeared to be a devoted husband, a kind father, and a model family man. But in private, he continued to see Keisha, who was unable to let go. Eliza later acknowledged that she suspected her husband was having an extramarital affair. But each time he sobbed and promised to leave his mistress, KLA made valiant attempts to end their traumatic relationship. KLA kept trying to end this awful relationship, but Felix would not let her go. She was without other men because the boxer had threatened to tell him if he discovered that. Keisha was seeing someone who wasn't suitable for her and her selected one, KLA, who had been in love with Rodriguez since high school, persisted in her love for him in spite of everything Rodriguez had planned. She got a job at the Center of Veterinary Medicine, and her co-workers in. Aesthetics praised her for being meticulous, hardworking, and very responsible. In 2020, Eliza discovered her husband's correspondence with multiple mistresses, including KLA, the wife, caused scandal for her husband and threw him out of the house, threatening to file for divorce and deny him access to his daughter. She lived with 2 dogs and a cat, which she simply adored. Eliza's threats also had an impact on the athlete's career at the time, which saw a significant decline and needless issues that he didn't need. He actually stopped seeing Rodriguez after a while, but Felix persisted in trying to keep her under control. A few months later, their covert visits continued, and in April 2021, KLA found out she was pregnant. She bought a rapid test at the pharmacy, which only confirmed her suspicions. First, she called her sister, who knew about her complicated relationship with the athlete and told her that having an abortion was not an option because Keisha was already 27 years old and ready to have a child, even if she had to raise it alone. A few days later, KLA told the child's father, hoping against. Felix, however, was not amused, to put it mildly. He became enraged and told his mistress to visit the doctor, and if the pregnancy is confirmed, an abortion will be required. Naturally, Rodriguez responded to him with a firm no, but the boxer started to threaten her, insisting that Felix say that an illegitimate child will finally destroy his reputation, and he cannot allow this to happen. After Keisha visited the hospital, Her pregnancy was confirmed, and she now had a certificate to prove it. She informed Felix everything over the phone, which infuriated him. Felix yelled at Keishla to get rid of the child right away, but she again responded with a categorical no. The athlete then made the calculated decision to go on the covert side, claiming he did not believe her and that he wanted to see the medical certificate in person. He scheduled a meeting for KLA in the evening in a busy area, which did not surprise her because they always try to blend in and avoid being noticed. A few days prior to the meeting, KLA, the boxer paid a visit to his longtime friend Luis Antonio Cadiz, who was employed at a nearby machine shop and had connections to the criminal world that dealt in illegal drugs. Felix told him the situation in brief and asked for assistance in getting rid of his mistress, who was pregnant. Louis was terrified about going to jail because he had previously been in the police's line of sight, but he persisted in telling him that everything would work out and that the police would never turn on them. In addition, Felix assured him of a substantial financial reward, and Luis consented with the help of an accomplice. Felix gave KLA a call and said he would like to meet with her that evening on April 29th to confirm her pregnancy and make an immediate decision after speaking with her partner. Keishla called her sister back and filled her in on everything. She was still hopeful that Felix would accept her child and not demand an abortion, but the state of affairs is quite frightening. She was aware that her sister's boyfriend had threatened her, and she was concerned that he wouldn't harm her. Bariz called her mother and expressed her concerns, but even together they were unable to stop KLA from going to that fateful meeting. At the scheduled time, Rodriguez arrived at the meeting in her own Kia Forte car with a doctor's note in tow. Verdejo drove there in his pickup truck, hiding behind Luis. Keishla immediately got into the athlete's car and showed him the test results. He again mentioned ending the pregnancy, but KLA, crying, refused. Against this backdrop, the couple started fighting violently, eventually resorting to yelling. Keishla was hit hard in the head by Felix, causing her to lose consciousness for a short while until KLA regained consciousness. Felix then used an accomplice and himself to inject KLA with a large dose of illegal substances that were concealed in the glove compartment of the car, which Luis had requested. The guys tied Rodriguez up, fastened the load, and covered her with a tarp so that no one would unintentionally see anything after carrying her to the rear of the vehicle where wires and a concrete block were already ready. Felix then went back to the pickup truck and his accomplice took over Keisha's car. Together they drove to the San Jose Lagoon Bridge, which was essentially deserted at night. These men threw KLA into the water while ensuring no one could see them, but later decided to take a few practice shots with the firearms they had brought with them in order to make sure the victim had no chance. When Kish failed to show up at the Veterinary Medicine and Aesthetics Center, her co-workers were the first to become concerned. After the massacre was over, all of the perpetrators went home. After several fruitless attempts to get in touch with her sister, Bariz went to her house. No one answered the door, so she was able to enter without issue. However, what she found there was a pack of starving animals who had not eaten in almost a full day. Bariz was already in a panic, realizing that something horrible or irreversible had happened to KLA. The following day, KLA, who has always been very responsible, could not just not show up for work without notifying anyone since she didn't answer the phone. The missing girl's mother took the first flight from Florida to San Juan. She believed that her lover might have taken her daughter to a private clinic and paid for her to have an abortion without her consent. She immediately called her mother and told her everything. She then reported her suspicions and threats to the police. She also called Felix, but he claimed that he had spent the previous evening and night at home with his family and had not gone to any meetings. Kayla was not even interested in considering the possibility that Keishla was no longer with her. Keisha's car was found abandoned on the east side of the city on April 30th with her documents and personal belongings inside. No signs of struggle were found inside, giving a slim chance of finding its owner alive. When it was discovered that the missing girl was in a long-term relationship with a famous athlete and was expecting a child from him, reporters literally lined up to interview any of Rodriguez's family members. The relatives did not hold anything back and spoke out about their suspicions and blamed Felix for the incident. The body of a young woman, who was likely the same one the entire city had been searching for several days, was recovered from the water by the police after a bystander on the bridge over the lagoon on May 1st. The Rodriguez family arrived to identify the body, hoping against hope that it was not a KLA body, but their hopes were dashed when they realized the body had been in the water for several days. Felix was given his freedom on his own terms. Investigators first looked at traffic surveillance footage on the route to the bridge from which Keisha was thrown. That's how they discovered Felix's pickup truck and the victim's car traveling behind each other. One of the key witnesses was the athlete's legal wife, who during the first interrogation admitted that she knew of his affair with KLA, but that she had learned of her rival's pregnancy for the first time. Additionally, she did not corroborate her husband's alibi that he was not at home on the night of the murder. The day the boxer's car was seized for inspection and some of the deceased's hair was discovered inside, it was evident that the Forte's Kia had not been driven by its owner. Louise was the first to turn herself in to the authorities, pledging to be completely honest in return for a lighter sentence. Felix was also placed under arrest, but he refused to assist with the investigation, evaded questions, and persisted in denying his guilt in the face of overwhelming evidence. Felix was found to have a firearm which he had used to shoot the victim from the bridge. Felix Liss's final farewell was on May 8th, and the funeral ceremony was widely covered by the national news. It was a kind of action calling for the perpetrators of the tragedy to be punished to the full extent of the law, as well as an action to draw public attention to the problem of gender violence. He had an official permit, and a cell phone check verified that Felix Liss and a KLA were in the same location on that fateful night. Many well-known Puerto Ricans, including showbiz stars, athletes, politicians, and public figures, have spoken out about the high-profile incident. Rodriguez was charged with carjacking, kidnapping, premeditated murder, and the murder of an unborn child. All of these crimes together carried the death penalty. However, the relatives of the deceased, from the outset, asked the court to elect a sentence of life imprisonment for the killer. The coffin containing Rodriguez's body was brought to the cemetery, not in a traditional hearse, but rather in a white carriage over which white flower petals were thrown. Due to the global coronavirus pandemic, the hearing was repeatedly postponed, but in the spring of 2021, the trial was held virtually. The court found that a group of people had committed the crime through prior conspiracy and with particular cruelty against a pregnant woman. It was possible to piece together the events of that night and the specifics of the crime primarily because of Liss's testimony, who did not deny his guilt. Felix acknowledged that he had obtained the injection drug at a friend's request and had also brought a wire and concrete block to dispose of the body, but he insisted that he was not involved in the case, despite the fact that his words could not have a significant impact on the circumstances. In the meantime, the boxer's wife, who testified in court almost immediately after her husband's arrest, filed for divorce and attempted to distance herself from the events by concentrating on growing his business and raising a small daughter. In the summer of 2023, it was revealed that the jury, having reviewed all the evidence and heard the testimony of all the witnesses, was finally prepared to announce the verdict. Some reports from not too long ago state that Eliza Santiago remarried Eliza, who acknowledged in an interview that she had received numerous anonymous calls and messages threatening her life and wishing her death. Miranda even thought that the athlete's spouse was the one organizing the crime, but no proof was found. The jury, after reviewing all the evidence and hearing all the witnesses, finally delivered their verdict. They found Felix Verdejo and Luis Cadiz guilty of all the charges against them. However, the killers have not yet been sentenced. They face the possibility of life imprisonment without parole. The next court hearing is scheduled for mid-November 2023. Meanwhile, Eliza Santiago, who remarried Eliza, said in an interview that she had received many anonymous threats and wishes of death. She suspected that the athlete's wife was behind the crime, but there was no proof. Thank you for watching, guys.